Good morning, everybody. Today on Spotlight, I'll sit down with Congressman Hanson Clark. He will talk about why he is seeking re-election to the United States Congress, only this time in the newly redrawn 14th Congressional District. The last time we talked was way back in January, and we didn't really get a chance to talk about the campaign then. We will do so today. And I'll also sit down and have a one-on-one conversation with Detroit Mayor Dave Bing. He'll talk about that very important press conference he held last week and the direction he is leading the city of Detroit. It's Sunday, July the 22nd. I'm Chuck Stokes, and this is Spotlight. The number one reason why people should elect you to represent the 14th Congressional District versus that crowded field of opponents that you have?
Well, I'm by far the best qualified based on my personal experience and my legislative accomplishment. And what people need right now is hope that they can live a better life in Metro Detroit. You know, my life, what I've had to go through, being raised as the only child of a single parent who passed away when I was 19, and then losing my education, losing my job, and losing ultimately hope at age 23, it gave me the determination to beat the odds. So the reason why I ran for Congress was to change this political system so it starts serving us, so it helps make our lives better. And I've been able to do that in an extraordinary way in just 18 months in Congress.
If you look at your campaign literature that you're sending out, it lists a lot of different accomplishments. If you had to single out one or two things that you felt really identify who Hanson Clark has been in Congress, what would it be?
My current initiative to help save our young black men and Hispanic men by addressing the crisis of illiteracy. I mean, that's the underlying problem right now. Many of our young men, and I grew up with them, my closest friends ended up being murdered, committing suicide, ending up in prison for decades because they couldn't read. They dropped out of school, resorted to crime, and ended up in prison. So one of the ways that we can help rebuild the reputation of the city of Detroit and the region is saving our young men by teaching them how to read. But here's why that initiative is so important. I was able to get bipartisan support from one of the most conservative members of Congress, Representative Tim Scott, who came to Detroit to lobby.
From South Carolina?
Absolutely, from South Carolina, from the South, to lobby our community on the importance of teaching our young people how to read. That's so important. Education is absolutely critical. So what I've been able to do is I've been able to reach out to Republicans to get their support. In addition, I've been able to effectively pass many funding proposals, get them approved in Congress to return money to help low-income mothers, to help our homeless veterans provide receiving a good place to stay, saving hundreds of firefighter jobs, and returning Homeland Security grants that will help better secure our families.
I know that you have supported President Obama on his health care initiatives. You've supported him on some of his tax initiatives. Is there an area of legislation that you have departed from the president on, that you feel maybe he's not done such a good job here, and if I could sit down with him one-on-one, this is what I'd take him to task on?
Well, first of all, I support the president, but my job is to serve and represent the people of this region. That's who I report to. So many times I've had to take the lead in Congress on issues that the White House was able then to follow up on. I'll give you an example. As the Congress and the president were talking about the federal debt, I realized the most important debt that was crushing Metro Detroiters was student loan debt, over $1 trillion, and it was costing us jobs. Many of our families worked hard to put their kids through school, but then their kids graduated with these degrees, but they were in so much debt and they couldn't find a good paying job that they were worse off financially than before they went to college. So I took the lead on addressing student loan debt as an issue that Congress, the administration must address. The president followed suit. In his administrative powers, he cut student loan debt, and he was able to shorten the time that someone would have to pay on their debt. Now, I went even further than that by introducing the Student Loan Forgiveness Act of 2012. There I have helped create a national movement of over 1 million people who are saying that student loan debt needs to be cut and in many times forgiven to help create jobs, free up our money, and provide some financial security for our families.
All right, we need to slip in a commercial break here. When we come back, I want to talk about the role that endorsements have played in this race, the role that money perhaps plays in this race, and race. It's something that is raised its head in this race as well. We'll be right back with Congressman Hanson Clark. We hope you stay with us. Congressman Hanson Clark, our guest today on Spotlight. Congressman, endorsements, they've been split all across the map here. You know, your opponents tout their endorsements, you've touted your endorsements. Of the endorsements that you've received, which ones are the most important to you? And I know they're all important, but you have to single out a couple and say, that endorsement says a lot about why I should get reelected to Congress and elected as the congressman representing the 14th Congressional District.
The fact that politicians focus on being endorsed by political organizations and they're obsessed by that, they're obsessed with fundraising, that's the problem with the political system. That's why government and Congress and all levels of government don't work effectively for people.
But you aren't saying endorsements aren't important.
No, but you know what I think is more important is that my role is to get Congress to endorse what Metro Detroiters need right now. Metro Detroiters are losing hope. Retirees are losing hope that they can't sell their home at a value to pay off their mortgages. Our young mothers are losing hope that their kids are going to be able to graduate.
Well, that's true, but
Chuck,
the point of the question about endorsements is that, I mean, when you stand up with the Fannie Lou Hamer and other organizations and say, you know, I'm appreciative of their endorsement, then I think that sends a signal to the voters out there that the issues that those organizations have said there are important to them are the issues that you're going to fight for in Congress. And so there's a direct correlation between the two, right?
But what I fight for, though, isn't based on an endorsement. It's based on what people tell me. So I work directly for the public. Now, if some political organization chooses to endorse me, that's fine. But a lot of these organizations, what they want is money, or they go by what someone in political leadership says. I'm not concerned with that. This political system has not worked for people either in the city of Detroit or the suburbs. It has divided us too long. Politicians focus too much on endorsement in politics. It needs to be about making our lives better here for people who are not in politics. These are your viewers right now. Most of your viewers watching us right now, they don't give a damn about politics. They want to have a better future for their children. They want to be able to stay in their homes. They want a better job. They want to be able to start a business. That's what people want. See, that's what I fight for. I want to make sure that government and Congress endorse what people need in Metro Detroit, especially those families who are not involved in politics.
Race has raised its head in this contest, and it's something that you said you've referred to as race baiting. You've even stayed out of debates as a result of it. Why is this such a sticky, thorny issue with you, and can you clear this up so that the voters out there clearly understand what's going on?
Yes, first of all, and I'll say this very clearly. The issue of race, my dead parents, and I come from a multiracial family. My father was born in India, now Bangladesh. He immigrated to this country. My mother is African American and Caribbean. She was a light-skinned black woman raised on the North End, graduate of Northern High School. Somehow those two people, very different, fell in love, got married, and I'm their only child.
All right, your opponents now, hang on a second.
All right.
Your opponents have said that your mother's birth certificate says that she's white and not that she's African American. What's the truth here?
The truth is she's African American. But here's the real truth. The real
Does
truth.
her birth certificate say
Chuck,
that?
Chuck, I don't know what her birth certificate says. I haven't seen it, all right? But here's what I do know. These tactics are raised just for one reason, to divide up the black vote in this race. So that's the sad truth is. And these dirty political tactics are costing our region our reputation. Let me give you an example. Racism by politicians in the suburbs and the city cost Metro Detroit a regional transit system. We're the largest metropolitan region in the country without one. Race does matter, but when you use it as a way to divide people, it's insulting, it's offensive, and I don't want anyone, black, white, or brown, to ever feel they have to defend who they are as a person.
Very, very quickly, because times are worse than to be here, do you envision a debate with your opponents now that this issue has been sort of cleared up and it's been aired in terms of race?
It hasn't. My opponent's going to raise up other issues about my dead parents.
So you're saying you
because
will
they
or
can't,
will not debate them?
Well, we'll see. We'll see. But the issue is this.
Maybe.
But the issue is this.
Is that a maybe?
I'm ready to, look, I'm not going to focus on that right now because people are in desperate shape right now, Chuck. They need jobs. They need hope. We need job training. We need to cut people's debt. So while people are focusing on campaigning, I campaign by servicing people. This is why I'm one of the only members of Congress, like in the state, that refuses to use tax dollars to provide myself with a vehicle. I have a mobile congressional office that goes out into the neighborhoods where people are. See, my job right now is to serve the people who are desperate. They're losing hope. And I'm not going to allow race baiting to undercut the work that I've done in Congress to build up the reputation of Metro Detroit. That's how I've been able to get money back to Detroit. That's how I've been able to get legislation approved in the Republican-controlled House, even though I'm a Democrat, because I focus on the value of investing in this region, building up our reputation, not allowing it to be torn down by divisive, futile, racial tactics.
Congressman, thank you for coming
You're welcome.
in. And we'll see what happens on primary election day. And coming up, my one-on-one conversation with Detroit Mayor Dave Bing. We hope you stay with us. Mr. Mayor, thanks for sitting down with us. The action you took earlier this week, why did you make that decision? And how difficult of a decision was it for you?
Well, it's a very difficult decision because it has a negative impact on a lot of people, the employees, but I can't just concern myself with the city employees. I'm the mayor of the city of Detroit, which has over 700,000 people. So I got to concern myself about them and the services that they pay for and we provide. Very tough decision.
The unions believe you have backstabbed them. Have you?
Absolutely not. I think over the Christmas holidays, during the negotiations that I was personally involved in, created a tentative agreement. But that tentative agreement was incumbent upon the state signing off on it. The state made it very clear to me that they weren't satisfied with the tentative agreement, and if in fact I had gone forward with that, they would have rejected it. So I was between a rock and a hard place, and it's got us where we are today.
Given the political tug of war here, how close do you think we are to having an emergency manager step in?
And I think that's the fallacy of the position that our city council president took, that he said he voted for the consent agreement to keep an emergency manager out. Had he read the document or understood the document, an emergency manager can come in if, in fact, we don't perform per the agreement. So the governor has the right, if, in fact, we don't get better in terms of our performance, he still has the right to send an emergency manager in.
Do you think that will eventually be the case?
I think we're all hopeful that that's not the case. And so we made the decision today to move our plan forward to start saving money for the city of Detroit. A lot of people don't believe that we're in a financial crisis yet. I don't know where they're living. And so we've got to do things now to save money and to, because we can't borrow money to do like other administrations did over a long period of time.
Of the changes you've instituted, which ones are most important to you?
Well, I think the wage reduction is important because it gets a savings immediately. I think the work rules are important, but that's over time and you got to take them one off. But it does give management the rights to do things differently versus what was in the contracts. whether it's overtime, whether it's holiday pay, vacation pay, those kind of things. It gives you the opportunity to manage your resources better. I can't give you a definitive number in terms of what that may or may not save, but it's a big number.
Mr. Mayor, have you tossed due process out the window?
I think not. Once again, as people go back and read the agreement gives us the right not to negotiate. And so we can't elongate this process, because every day that this process goes on, we're spending $350,000 a day, and we're getting nothing for it. So I've made the decision that we need to implement this plan and move forward and save as much money as we can to put us on a much more stable financial position.
You've been working on a blight plan to get rid of the eyesores in the city of Detroit. Bring us up to date on where you are with your plan right now.
2 years ago, I laid out a plan of demolishing 3,000 homes per year. Last year, we exceeded that number. This year, we're at about, as I speak, at about 4,800. I've already gone public saying in the next 90 days, we're going to demolish another 1,500. We will exceed the 3,000 again this year. So, you know, the plan that the governor has is really with the school system more so than with the city, with DPS, trying to make sure that we clean up the blight around schools. But we will participate in that, but we have a process that's in place that's been successful. But the reality is this, we have over 40,000 empty homes in the city of Detroit. So even getting 3,000 down a year is going to take a while to remove all the blight in the city.
Given the financial challenges and the action that you've taken, how much will that impede delivery of core services, particularly the lighting department?
The lighting department, hopefully, the legislature will have voted on an authority, and that's the beginning of not dismantling our public lighting department, but giving us the necessary vehicle to go out and raise funds so that we can fix the lighting in the city of Detroit. Very, very important. I think that would be number 2 on the most important things that we can fix in the city. The number 1 would be, you know, police and crime.
Crime is certainly an issue for the city of Detroit. Are you solidly behind the leadership of your police department?
Absolutely. Chief Godby, what I concern myself about him as a leader is that he's such a good leader that I think we're at risk of losing him. And that would be devastating, I think, to this administration and to this city.
You think that's a very real possibility?
There is a possibility. He's a star, in my opinion. But he can't, as an individual, nor can his department, stop crime. Crime is going to continue, whether he's here or not. It's about the culture that we're in right now. And, you know, what the police do is respond to crimes. And we've got to get a mind change, a culture change that says we can, I mean, there's no explanation for some of the stuff that goes on. It's heinous. And it's a family thing, it's a cultural thing, and we all as a community have to come together in some kind of way to fight this problem, not just the police.
Mr. Mayor, I need to take a commercial break. We will be right back with more questions to Detroit Mayor Dave Bing. We hope you stay with us. It's a hot summer. Young people need something to do. Will you be able to keep all the rec centers open?
Well, there was some talk early on in the year about closing rec centers down. I'm 100% opposed to that, and I've gone public and made it very clear. But the rec center wasn't allowed to stay whole as we put our budget together. They had almost a 50% reduction in their budget. They're about $18 million, and we cut it $8 million. What I've done is gone out publicly to enhance relationships with foundations, with major businesses, with nonprofits, et cetera, to try to close that gap of the $8 million cut. I've been very successful at this point. We're not going to close any rec centers. I'm very hopeful that we won't have to cut back in any of the programming. So
even with the financial situation that we're facing?
Because I've raised a lot of money so far. I would tell you I've raised over $14 million at this point. And I want to identify and thank those corporations, those individuals, those foundations that have made commitments to help us keep programs in our rec centers and keep rec centers open. We think about kids, but our seniors use the rec centers just as much as our kids do. So they all need a place to go. They're a very important part of every community where they exist.
We're coming up on some important elections. What concerns you the most?
I'm most concerned with what's going to happen with leadership of our country, the presidency. We have a terrible voting record. You know, in order for the president to win Michigan, Detroiters are going to have to come out in record numbers, in my opinion. I think we had a turnout last presidential election when Obama was running. It was less than 25%. We've got to do a better job of educating our citizens and how important this is going to be. Without the support that we have gotten from the Obama administration, a lot of the things that we're doing right now we would not have been able to do. So I'm hopeful that he'll get re-elected. I'm going to do everything that I can to be supportive of that, because I want him in there because he sees Detroit as a very important city.
Mr. Mayor, you came into office with quite a legacy, an NBA Hall of Famer, and a respected businessman. How concerned are you that, given everything that has happened, by the time you leave office, that same reputation may not be intact?
If I was worried about my reputation, this is a job I would not have taken, because I think it's the second hardest job in the country behind the president because of the situation we find ourselves in. I think the fallacy that so many people forget is that this started 2 years ago, 3 years ago. Detroit got into this situation over a long period of time. And I inherited this situation, and I came in thinking that I can make a difference, that I can help. I think I've done that. And I'm not running away from hard decisions that should have been made that were not made. I'm going to make those decisions and let the cards fall wherever they may.
All right. Mr. Mayor, thank you for sitting down with us.
Thank you.
It's always a pleasure.
Good. Thank you.
Special thanks to Congressman Hanson Clark and Mayor Dave Bing for sitting down with me today on Spotlight. I'm Chuck Stokes. We'll be back next week with more newsmakers in the Spotlight. We hope you have a great week.
This Week with George Stephanopoulos is next here on 7.